just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. Coach Nick, you know what I was thinking about today?
Oh, hit me.
I was thinking about how there's different signs when you have these major breakthroughs. I know we talked about that before, but it's interesting going through each part of it's almost like a cycle, right? There's different stages and levels. And there's different challenges along the way. It's like a mini version of the hero's journey. Like it happens much more quickly than an expanded version of that. But I think you can work on managing each stage differently depending on what you're going through. And you can accelerate the process by which you go through it.
Yeah, I often draw the visual of this, right? The cycles coming out of you, like the smaller the circles, the tighter the cycles, and the more cycles you could have. If you've got cycles which are like miles big, you can only fit a few of those cycles in your life, and then you're dead. But if they're like
big sloppy cycles,
sloppy cycles, yeah. But if you can fit them, tighten them up. I mean, I like the concept of cycles within the cycles, right? Because it's the micro and the macro within the scale, contrast, and context of it. Yeah, absolutely. And then the more often that you see it as well, the more you can come attuned to the cycles within the cycles. You start to see the different. Oh, like I didn't notice on this other one, but this one in this time, I noticed that let's say the stretch part of the initial call to the journey felt really long or felt really quick. So can you pin it down what you've noticed, which part you've noticed of it?
Well, so I think it's interesting. I just observed like even the terminology that you're using as part of like assigning a name to it as part of that growth process.
Yeah.
Like it's just identifying what it is. Oh, it's just that stage right there. That's kind of advanced. Like there's, you got to make sure that people are on that wavelength already. But that's what it is, right? It becomes, you do it so repetitively that you notice the patterns with it.
Right. I mean, is that being really skilled at a particular sport to the untrained eye? It just looks the same. Like, but if you are actually in that car racing a Formula One driver and you can't even get off the line because you can't, you're still in the thing. That guy's running past you a million miles an hour, right? It's like
squealing out for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a big difference. Those back to the reps, the reps have less impact at higher levels, or at least the impact is more subtle. You can't see those big differences, but they matter nevertheless.
Yeah. And I've also learned that there's like what I maybe previously would have deemed the high point, like getting the results. Like it's kind of fallen in line with the other, like there's high points at each stage that are not about the results. Does that make sense? Like sometimes like leaning into the pain, I wouldn't say that's a high point, right? But like leaning into that becomes a high point.
The impactful point is not often the impactful point you expect it to be.
Yeah, that's true too. 100%.
Yeah, I think like that's where my mind's going with that. I have a client who spent a lot of time beginning of this year creating a business plan for a brewery he wants to open, and he's at a real big jumping off point, going to fly across country to go meet some investors. And this week, and he's in a place where it's like, oh my goodness, like his wife had a work conflict that he didn't know about until then, and no one was there to look after their girls. And so it was suddenly, it's like, oh my goodness, this happened again. I can't go. It's a big thing. And like, I'm so close to it. All I could do is get on the plane and I know that everyone's good. It's like, actually, the most important thing right now is just figuring out childcare. And actually the biggest impact is not having those investor meetings in Vegas. Biggest thing for your success of your business right now is childcare,
Wow.
because that's the barrier.
Wow. Yeah,
Rather than going, I had it, oh, I was so close, but I couldn't do it because of the childcare thing, and making a whole big thing about it. It's just like, don't try and solve the problem that you've got, not one that you haven't.
Yeah. So great. And then I think you can look back and say, like, I'm glad I didn't take a deal with those guys, or like whatever, like you weren't meant to be on that path. Like there was something more important. So that's where you should have gone.
Yeah. Right. And then when you do that, just take the next best step.
Right.
Then it all opens up anyway.
Right.
So it went from within a day, went from.
That's part of the learning process of this cycle, is that it's the refocusing on what's important.
Yeah.
You're like coming back. There's all these distractions and ups and downs throughout the process. But like, as long as you have a place that you're going, which is so like, that's the part it's fluid though, right? Where you're going. That's why it's so interesting. Like you can define it in so many different ways, a business way, a personal way, a spiritual way, a physical, there's all these different ways that you can define that.
Yeah.
Because there's progress in all those areas, right? You can make progress in all those areas.
Yeah. And it's being committed to your outcomes, but flexible in your approach. Right? We're back to that perspective.
Yeah.
Got to know where you're going to go, and you got to be really committed to it, but you've also got to be willing to throw it all out any given moment. But and knowing when to do that and when not to do that to push through, that's the art.
Yeah. That reminds me of the bluegrass, green grass episode that we did a couple of weeks ago. Grass is green, it's blue.
Right. So it goes from being, oh my goodness, I can't get on the plane, there's this big thing going on, it's a whole big thing, why is this happening again, to let's refocus. Who can actually call to get the childcare in place? And then within 24 hours, the childcare's in place, we're going to go.
Yeah.
It's like it's all taken care of, right? Deal with what's in front of you, what's real. What's a real thing?
Yeah. It's the Coach Rich's race car example. Goes out of control, people look at the wall and they find the wall. About finding the road, which you're actually looking to accomplish. Refocus on that. Let's not crash into walls here.
Yeah, this concept of focus was just so front and center for me in my first part of my Tony Robbins experience, when I was in there so deep, right? One of the biggest things is that the quote is, what you focus on is what you get, or where focus goes, energy flows. So whatever you're focused on is what you're going to get more of.
But it's like you practice that until you realize that you've strayed, and then it becomes important again.
Right, exactly. Because you like, okay, oh, that's really, really important. And then because of that, I got to this next concept or principle or part of my life. So I got deep in that.
Right.
Now I realized that I got to go back to the first one, and that's the beauty of it. That's why it's never ending. That's why it's the journey to mastery.
Right.
I also
think there's a degree to that with like, don't chase, right? Like practice what you know works and be steady about that.
Yeah. But also you can't just rest on your laurels, right? Because you got to like go check in that you're going deeper on where you are. But I was just telling Coach Eric, one of our colleagues, about our conversation we had last week around, I've seen these concepts before.
Mm-hmm.
I know what they are. I don't have to go look at them. Like as soon as you go to that place, it's like, oh, you're not living in the Kenai, you're not in the constant never end improvement. So you remind yourself that it's going back and having that white belt attitude and the black belt execution of where you are, constantly check in on it. What am I focusing on? Right?
Yeah.
Super cool.
So much stuff. There's so many things there. There's so many black belts to earn.
Right. And then you go around earning black belts. Oh, I've got black belts of 10 things. Well, yeah, maybe that last black belt you got, but probably that first one you haven't looked at for a year. Then you're not probably down to a brown belt. So you go back to look at that as well, right? And it's not like there's just 10, right? So,
and there's your cycle right there. Literally a cycle. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just pick it, and like it's all a challenge, it's all a journey of mastery.
Yeah.
Like there's no end game, which is crazy because all we talk about is defining your end game. But that's the constant balance. Like it's never a part of it. Any real cool coaching celebrations to share, Coach? Because some good client stuff and good client wins.
Yeah, they're all over the place. They happen in like mini versions of breakthroughs. The more that I coach, the more that I can identify when there's like it takes time, right? There's so many things that sets in the process after that light bulb goes on. but you can see that light bulb go on, and you can, it's cool. So that happens, it should be happening every call, right? But sometimes it doesn't, and you go where you need to go.
Absolutely. And, like, again, the further you are with a client, the more subtle those light bulbs are, but they're just as important. But I'm pretty early on with a client I work with today. Lady's just fantastic, just like really open, honest, and humble in her approach. Great at what she does, and she wouldn't be working with me otherwise. They wouldn't have the guy that runs the company wouldn't have put us together. And she's just so open to think about what she wants and be clear about the feelings that she wants to get based on the results.
Yeah.
Like, wow, it's
Yes.
not often that people start there. She's really cool with that. But as we go through the concepts, like, we're going deeper and deeper. And it's just so cool to see almost the sequential process of asking what she wants and then digging into why it's important for her, and then taking some action, and then coming back the next week and going, we're basically asking the same questions for 3 or 4 weeks in a row. But the level and the depth that we've achieved just in that time is crazy from where we started. Right now we're on the concepts of Lagley lift and like putting it all together. So you've got like the subjective goal with the objective goal, and some real key measurements, what it means for her, but what it means for her as a person, what it means for her as a feeling, but what it means for her as impact in her life, which is above the waterline, which is like physical, but also what does that mean for the company she works with? Like, how do we all win together, right? So in a way where it's all together as one, which creates more power. It's super cool.
That was going to be my observation. It's all interwoven together. It's all integrated.
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you create the leverage. Is that, why am I doing what am I doing? And then that thing on its own then leads into the thing after that. It's like, why listen to an audio book in the morning? Well, because then that's going to inspire me to work out. Okay, why am I working out? Because that's going to inspire me to be more healthy. And as I'm doing that, I'm listening to the book, I'm even enjoying it even more. And then I'm thinking about other things, and it's James Clear's habit stacking in some ways, right? But that's just one thing after another, after another, after another. It sets up the opportunity for success in any given day. It's such a deep level. It's much higher.
Why do you think that is? Because those things are so simple, right? The difference between those people and people that don't is so minuscule. But like, why is it so important? How is it so impactful? Such a small thing, and such a small thing, stacked on top of other small things.
Well, that reminds me of a Jim Rohn quote, or a bit that he does. He's almost like a comedian in the way that he shares his stuff. He said that success is easy. It's easy. It's easy to do the things that get us to success.
I watch that video a lot.
Right, but it's also easy not to. That's why I'd say it's just a choice. To pick up that and do that, it's easy, it's simple. Seems like it's not worth it, but it's also easy not to. But it just sends you on and then go back to James Clear. Every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. Small, like votes in any, votes in a large society needs a lot of votes. It's like, well, no one vote makes the difference, but it's a catalyst or an opportunity for the next one, and the next one, the next one, right? So object emotion tends to stay in motion, or whatever direction you're going in, you tend to go more of that direction. And so that when you're in a good place like that, you tend to be in a good place, but you want to keep adding to it, because otherwise, as we know, left alone, it will erode.
Yeah. That's the importance of being well-rounded and balanced, and there's all these, and ever continuous.
Yeah.
All right, so what are we missing, Coach? Any blind spots with, like, how come stuff can still catch us by surprise? We know this stuff so well. How does that happen?
I had a client today, and he's just like cranking financial services, absolutely cranking in his numbers and helping so many people. And it's down to the fact that even though he's been doing business for 25 years, he's still got to reach out to his clients and make an impact. And it's the 30 calls he needs to make every week. And the who he talks to and why he talks to them is different, but those are the numbers. And every week we're working on the same thing. He looks at his numbers and he goes, I've got it, I've got the setup right. I know who I'm calling, got it in the calendar, my time. And he said, my girlfriend says to me yesterday, have you done your calls? And he said, no, I don't want to.
Oh, wow.
And he can observe it for himself as well. because the crazy thing is that all the leverage and the motivation and the why, that all changes. It's all fluid as well.
Mm.
Because if we started by talking about the levels of like your breakthrough in those mini hero journeys, and it starts to change your identity, and what is leveraged to one identity is not necessarily leveraged to another identity. So the way you set up your game may not work anymore. You got to reset and come back to it. So what catches us out is what should catch us out, which is not really catching us out anyway. It's just a reminder that we need to keep moving forward, right? It's like, that's the way it was supposed to be today, so I can do it different tomorrow.
A reminder to keep moving forward. I really, really like that. Yeah, it's like a little nudge, like, hey, here's what pain feels like, or here's disappointment. All right, so what are you focused on? It's like a little check-in, like a gut check.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what coaching is, I like this visual of being in the middle of a football field, or any other chosen sport you might like, just a big open space, right? You're standing in the center circle, let's say, like you can go to any direction you want. You've got a 360-degree view of wherever you want to go. And each one of those degrees is a different destination, right? Different destiny. And what we do in coaching is have these huge walls come down from the sky and like kind of come around you, and only direct it in a way for the right degree that you want to go to the destination that you want to go. And that changes, right? So we're constantly adjusting those walls, but without those walls, you've got just too many distractions, and you can't just trust yourself to know you're going the right way. It's like, I can't know where I'm going. Well, yeah, you're on the field, still on the field. Right? But it's like, I know I don't need to write it down, or I haven't wrote it down, but has there ever been a time you've worked with a client and by just asking questions and then gaining more clarity, they haven't gone, wow, it's amazing how much more clear I feel now?
Mm-hmm.
It never fails, right? It's
right.
always omnipresent.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because we can do that ourselves, right? That's a practice, but well, that's, I guess, what you're talking about with like listening to videos and working out, like one thing leading to the next. It's all part of the interwoven web that you're building for your life. Like, it's become, you talk about identity, that's who you are.
Yeah.
Self-improving, mindful, like seeking mastery of self. Episode title right there, coach.
It's like it's an organic force, right? We're organic beings. There's no end point until we're dead. Right? There's always, so it's what works today won't work tomorrow, or may, and it may work for another year, but then it will suddenly not work, or it'll work for a second and it won't, like, will work for an hour and it won't work again, because there's so many variables. But the point is not to control the variables. Yeah, it's to control. And I think that's stay committed to your outcome, but flexible in your approach. That means stop trying to be rigid and control all the variables, because you can't control everything. But you can get committed to where you want to go, and then know that wherever the path takes you, you'll go on it. But then you're going to make the moves that you need to make, so you can course correct all the time.
Yeah, why worry about something in the future? You're going to be somebody completely different by then anyway, and you'll have, the answers.
That's the most crazy thing. I mean, it's like, yeah, what if I go down this road and I take this new job, or I start this new business? It's not what I really want. Well, it doesn't matter, which is so weird, because the whole point you're doing it is because you want something. But that year down the line that you've made that big lift about where you want to go is about the person you become. And that person you become may not want the thing that you went after, but that person you become is more than that person that you left. And that so my parents are coming to visit tomorrow, and you don't need a COVID proof of no COVID anymore, but you do need to have your vaccine to get on an airplane. And my mum couldn't find a vaccine card. And so we thought, well, there's a way of going online to find what it is in the UK. And so Christine went on the internet, and we had her on our iPad trying to talk her through how to do this. Spent half an hour, maybe more, And like she was like, I've got, like, can you go and get another document? Go and get another document. She would run upstairs trying to find this new document. We're all the way into this, just about to get to the end. Like, wait, need one more thing. She goes upstairs, takes ages to come down. When she comes down, she goes, I found it. I found the document I wanted in the first place. So we went through this whole journey, the hero's journey of the process to try and find a way to get a copy of these documentations for the online portal for the National Health Service in England, only for her to find the thing that she lost in the first place. And it's like, well, oh no, we wasted all this time. It's like, well, no, actually we got the outcome we wanted, which was for her to have proof to get on the airplane. It's like, we got it.
Problem solved.
We got our outcome. So it's like, whatever journey you got to take, you got to be focused on the outcome. Because you could go, oh, that was a nightmare. I wasted all this time. So that's just what it took.
Yeah. And oftentimes when it's most doubtful is when you can get the biggest breakthrough. Right? If you just push through, because there's challenges along the way. You don't always, there's doubts.
And you don't know where it's going to come. Like you don't, right. And that's another example. You don't know what the barrier is going to be. It's like if you're starting a business, it could be, oh, the investors are going to say yes or no, but the barrier is like, oh, I need childcare. So you don't expect it in the same places. Very interesting.
Very interesting. Coach, episode 101 in the books here.
Very cool.
What do you think about that?
I'm excited for 500. Let's go.
500. Can you see that far?
No, that's why I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
Where would we? Yeah, I think we should start to think about that a bit further down the line. Where do we want to be? What does it look like?
Damn, we'll leave it there. See you next week.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction, so please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset. Come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.